I moved to Oceanside because I thought being close to the water would fix me. That sounds dramatic, but at the time it made sense. I was 23, burned out, and working remotely for a customer support company that treated every unanswered email like a small national emergency. I had just gone through a breakup that was technically mutual, which is what people call it when both sides are too exhausted to keep hurting each other out loud. So when I found a cheap studio behind an old Spanish-style house 5 blocks from the beach, I convinced myself it was exactly what I needed. The listing called it a detached guest unit. That was generous. It was basically a converted garage with white stucco walls, a tiny bathroom, a kitchenette, and one window that looked into the side yard. But it had a private entrance, parking, and rent that didn't make me want to fake my own death. In Southern California, that was enough. The main house belonged to a woman named Marlene, who lived in Riverside with her sister and only came by once or twice a month. She was in her late 60s, always wore huge sunglasses, and spoke in that calm landlord voice where everything sounds casual until you realize she's warning you. "The neighborhood is quiet," she told me while handing me the keys. "Mostly families, a few long-term renters. Just don't leave anything valuable in your car." I laughed because I thought she meant bikes or surfboards. She didn't laugh back. The first few weeks were fine. Better than fine, actually. I'd wake up early, walk down to the pier with coffee, work until 5, then sit outside in a folding chair pretending I was the kind of person who meditated instead of doom-scrolled. There was a narrow path along the side of the main house that led to my door. The path had a wooden gate at the front and a motion light above it. Every night when I came home, the light would click on and make the whole side yard look washed out and strange. At first, the only thing that bothered me was the main house being empty. It wasn't abandoned. Marlene kept it maintained. The lawn was clipped, the porch swept, the windows clean. But nobody lived inside, and empty houses have a way of feeling like they're waiting for someone. Still, I got used to it. Then the postcards started showing up. The first one was stuck under my windshield wiper on a Tuesday morning. It was an old postcard of the Oceanside Pier, faded like it had been sitting in someone's drawer for 20 years. On the back, in blue pen, someone had written, "Welcome home, Nate. My name is Nathan, but everyone calls me Nate." I looked around the street, half expecting one of my friends to be hiding behind a parked car laughing. But I didn't have many friends in Oceanside yet, and none of them knew where I parked. At first, I assumed it was from my ex, Jenna. It seemed like the kind of weird emotional thing she might do if she was drunk and nostalgic. But Jenna lived in Portland now, and when I texted her a picture of it, she replied almost instantly. "What the hell is that?" Then, "That's creepy." Not me. I believed her. I showed it to Marlene the next time she came by. She squinted at it through her sunglasses and said, "Maybe one of the neighbors is trying to be friendly." I said, "By putting my name on an old postcard and leaving it on my car?" She gave me a look that said she didn't want this to become her problem. "Probably kids," she said. I wanted to believe that, so I did. The second postcard came 4 days later. This one was in my mailbox. It showed Mission San Luis Rey, the old mission north of town. On the back, the message said, "You left your light on last night." That was the first time I felt something cold move through my stomach, because I had left my light on. I'd fallen asleep with the lamp on beside my bed, and the only way someone could have known that was if they had looked through my window. That night, I taped a towel over the window because the cheap blinds had gaps between the slats. I checked the lock on my door 3 times. Then I sat on my bed listening to every small sound outside. Around 1:30 in the morning, the motion light clicked on. My whole body went still. The light was bright enough to glow around the edges of the towel covering the window. I didn't move. I didn't breathe right. I waited for footsteps. Nothing. After maybe 30 seconds, the light clicked off again. I told myself it was a cat, or a raccoon, or the wind pushing the gate. Then it clicked back on. This time, I heard the gate. Not opening all the way. Just a soft wooden shift, like someone testing it with their fingertips. I grabbed my phone and opened the camera, thinking I could record through the blinds, but then I remembered the towel. I slowly stood up, crossed the room, and peeled one corner back. The side yard was empty. The gate was closed. The motion light stayed on for another few seconds, then shut off. I barely slept. The next morning, I walked outside and checked the gate. It had a latch on the inside and a simple metal handle on the outside. Nothing was broken, but there was something tucked into the gap between the gate and the fence. Another postcard. This one showed a sunset over La Jolla Cove. On the back it said, "Don't cover the window." I drove straight to Target and bought blackout curtains, a doorbell camera, and a baseball bat. I spent most of the afternoon installing everything with YouTube tutorials and a level app on my phone. The camera faced the side path from my door toward the gate. It wasn't perfect, but it covered the only way someone should have been able to reach my unit. That night, nothing happened. Same with the next night. By the third night, I started to feel stupid. I'd built this whole story in my head about some stalker with antique postcards, and maybe it really was just some local teenager messing with me. Then on Friday morning, I checked the camera footage. There was one event from 2:14 a.m. The thumbnail showed the side yard lit up by the motion light. I opened it. For the first few seconds, nothing moved. Then the gate slowly opened inward. A man stepped through. He was wearing jeans, a dark hoodie, gloves, and one of those cheap paper masks people wore during wildfires. He kept his head down so I couldn't see his face. He didn't walk like someone sneaking around randomly. He walked like someone who knew exactly where he was going. He came halfway down the path, stopped, and looked straight at my door. Then he turned his head toward the camera. He stared at it for maybe 2 seconds. Then the video glitched. Not stopped. Glitched. The image broke into gray blocks, froze, and then jumped ahead to the side yard empty again. The gate was closed, the clip ended. I watched it 5 times, feeling my heart beat in my throat. Then I called the police. 2 officers came out around noon. They were polite, but I could tell this wasn't exactly their top priority. One of them watched the footage and said, "Yeah, that's definitely somebody." The other asked if I had any disputes with neighbors, coworkers, exes, roommates, anyone. I told them no. They asked about the postcards. I gave them all 3. They put them in an evidence bag, which made the whole thing feel more serious and somehow less helpful. "Keep your doors locked," one officer said. "If he comes back, call immediately. Don't confront him." After they left, I called Marlene. For the first time, she sounded genuinely unsettled. "A man?" she asked. "Yes, he came through the gate." "Did he try the door?" "No, not in the video." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'll have the locks changed." I said, "The lock on my unit or the gate?" "All of them." Something about the way she said that made me ask, has something like this happened here before? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "There was a tenant before you who complained about someone looking around the property." My skin prickled. "You didn't think that was worth mentioning?" "It was almost a year ago," she said, "and she was only here for 2 months. I thought it was a misunderstanding." "What did she say happened?" "She said she saw someone in the backyard." "The backyard behind the main house?" "Yes." "Did she describe him?" Marlene sighed. "She said he was tall, thin, wore a mask." I packed a bag and stayed at a motel in Carlsbad that night. I probably should have moved out right then, but moving in California is expensive, and fear gets complicated when you're broke. Marlene offered to install a better gate lock and put up another light. She even knocked $100 off the next month's rent. So I came back. That was my first mistake. For about 2 weeks, everything was quiet. No postcards, no camera alerts, no gate opening at night. I started going back to my routine. Coffee at the pier, work, folding chair outside, pretending I wasn't checking the camera app every hour. Then one evening, a woman knocked on my door. She was maybe 30 with short black hair, tired eyes, and a sweatshirt from UC Santa Cruz. She stood in the side yard with both hands in her pockets, looking like she regretted coming before I even opened the door. "Are you Nate?" she asked. "Yeah. My name's Alyssa. I used to live here." I didn't say anything. She looked toward the gate, then back at me. "I'm guessing Marlene didn't tell you about me." I felt that same cold sensation again. She mentioned a former tenant saw someone in the yard. Alyssa gave a humorless little laugh. Of course, that's how she described it. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "What happened?" She looked at my camera above the door. "Do you have footage?" I hesitated. "Of what?" "Him." I didn't like that she said him like there was no question. I showed her the video on my phone. The second the masked man stepped through the gate, her face changed. She didn't scream or gasp. She just went pale in a way that made me understand she already knew exactly what she was looking at. "That's him," she said. "Who is he?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" "No, but he came around when I lived here too." I asked her to start from the beginning. She told me she had rented the same unit for 2 months the previous year while working at a veterinary clinic in Vista. At first, she'd noticed small things. Cigarette ash near the gate, her window screen slightly bent, the smell of men's cologne outside her door. Then she started getting notes. Not postcards. Notes. Little scraps of paper left on her windshield, under her door, inside her mailbox. The messages were short. "You sleep late. I like your blue shirt." "I like your blue. Why do you talk to yourself?" The last one had been left on her pillow, inside the unit. That was when she moved out. I felt dizzy hearing that. "Did you call the police?" "Of course." "And?" "No forced entry. No suspect. Marlene changed the locks and acted like I was overreacting." I looked back toward the main house. Alyssa lowered her voice. "There's something else." "What?" "When I moved out, I realized a bunch of my photos were missing." "What photos?" "Printed ones, from a shoebox in my closet. Nothing valuable, just old pictures of me and my friends. My family. College stuff." I thought about the postcards in my mailbox. Old physical images. Alyssa looked at me for a long second. "Has he left you anything?" I almost lied. I don't know why. Maybe because saying it out loud made it real. "Postcards," I said. Her eyes flicked toward my car. "What did they say?" I told her. She pressed her lips together and nodded slowly, like some terrible piece had just clicked into place. "What?" I asked. She said, "When I lived here, I never got postcards, but Marlene told me the tenant before me did." I stared at her. "There was someone before you?" "Yeah, a guy named Trevor. I never met him, but one of the neighbors mentioned him once." "What happened to him?" Alyssa didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "He left in the middle of the night." I asked Alyssa what she meant by left in the middle of the night. She shrugged, but it wasn't casual. It was the kind of shrug people do when they don't want to admit how much something still bothers them. "That's just what the neighbor said. One day he was here, next day he was gone. No moving truck, no goodbye, no deposit dispute. Just gone." "Did Marlene say anything about him?" "She told me he broke the lease." That sounded exactly like Marlene. Alyssa gave me her number before she left. She told me to call her if anything else happened, then added one more thing as she walked toward the gate. "Don't trust the quiet days." I didn't understand what she meant until later. For the next week, I became obsessed with the property. I checked every window, every lock, every vent. I walked around the main house looking for signs that someone had been near it. I bought a second camera and pointed it toward the front gate from the inside. I even put a strip of clear tape across the side gate at ankle height, so if anyone opened it at night, it would snap. Nothing happened. No alerts, no postcards, no footsteps. And somehow that was worse. Quiet starts feeling like a countdown when you know someone is capable of coming back. I called Marlene and asked for Trevor's last name. She got defensive immediately. Why? Because if he had the same problem, maybe we should talk to him. I'm not giving out former tenants' personal information. Did he get postcards? A pause. Nate, I already told you I'm handling this. You didn't answer me. I don't remember. You don't remember if a tenant was being stalked on your property? Her voice hardened. You're free to break the lease if you feel unsafe. That was the closest thing to honesty I'd gotten from her. I hung up. That night, I did what everyone tells you not to do. I started searching online. I searched the address first. Nothing useful came up except rental listings from old websites and a few blurry real estate photos. Then I searched Marlene's full name with the address. Still nothing. Then I searched the phrase Oceanside Tenant Postcards. That got me nowhere. I tried Oceanside Masked Man Rental. Oceanside Prowler Guest House. Oceanside Stalker Postcards. Most of the results were unrelated news stories and Reddit posts about creepy landlords. After an hour, I gave up and went to bed, feeling ridiculous. Around 2:40 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Camera alert. I sat straight up so fast the blanket fell onto the floor. The alert was from the side gate camera. I opened the app. The live feed showed the side yard in black and white. Empty. Still. Then something moved near the bottom of the frame. The gate opened, only an inch, then stopped. Whoever was on the other side didn't come in. I watched, barely breathing, as a hand slid through the gap. It was wearing a glove. The hand held a postcard. It dropped it onto the path, then pulled back. The gate closed. The motion light turned off. I called 911 while staring at the live feed. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. I told the dispatcher someone had just opened my gate and left something outside my door. She asked if the person was still there. I don't know. Are you somewhere safe? I'm inside with the door locked. Stay there. The police came faster this time, maybe 7 minutes. One officer stood by my door while the other checked around the property. They found no one. The postcard was still on the path. This one showed an old photo of the Santa Monica Pier at night. On the back, it said, "Ask Marlene about the closet." I read it 3 times. One of the officers asked, "Does that mean anything to you?" No. But I knew one person it might mean something to. I called Alyssa as soon as the officers left. She answered on the second ring, sounding wide awake. "He came back?" she asked. "Yeah." I told her about the postcard. She went quiet. Then she said, "The closet in the main house?" "I don't know. It just says the closet." "There was a closet I always wondered about." "What do you mean?" "When I lived there, I had to go into the main house once because a pipe under my sink backed up and Marlene told me the shutoff valve was inside. The house was empty, but she gave me the garage code. There was this hallway closet near the back bedroom. It had a deadbolt on it." "A closet with a deadbolt?" "Yeah, I asked her about it later. She said it was storage." I looked toward the wall that separated my unit from the empty main house, even though I couldn't actually see it from where I sat. "Did you ever open it?" "No." I didn't sleep after that. At 9 in the morning, I called Marlene and told her I needed to see the closet. She acted confused, then annoyed, then finally scared. "What closet?" "The one in the hallway with the deadbolt." "That's private storage." "Someone came here last night and left a postcard telling me to ask you about it." Silence. Then she said, "I'll come by this afternoon." "No, I want to see it now." "I'm in Riverside." "Then give me the code to the main house." "Absolutely not." "Then I'm calling the police back and telling them there's a locked room inside the house connected to multiple stalking complaints from your tenants." That got her. She gave me the garage code. My hands were shaking when I walked along the side path to the back of the main house. For some reason, going inside during daylight almost felt worse than it would have at night. At night, fear makes sense. In the morning, everything should feel normal. The garage smelled like cardboard and hot dust. There were paint cans stacked near the wall, a broken beach chair, and a covered shape that looked like a bicycle. The door from the garage into the house was unlocked. Inside, the main house was silent. It had that empty house smell. Stale air, old wood, faint cleaning products. The furniture was still there but covered with white sheets. Sunlight came through the blinds in thin stripes. I walked down the hallway exactly where Alyssa had described. The closet was near the back bedroom, and yes, there was a deadbolt on it. Not a small one either. A serious lock, the kind you'd put on an exterior door. I called Marlene. "I'm at the closet." "You shouldn't be in there alone." "Where's the key?" She exhaled hard. "Nate, listen to me. That closet has nothing to do with this." "Then where's the key?" "I don't have it." I actually laughed. "You have a locked closet in your own house and you don't have the key?" "My late husband installed it. I never use that closet." "What's inside?" "Old things." "What kind of old things?" Another pause. Then she said, "My son's things." That was the first time I had ever heard her mention having a son. I said, "You have a son?" "Had." The word sat there between us. "What happened to him?" "He died." I didn't know what to say. Marlene's voice changed. It got thin and tired. "His name was Garrett. He had problems. Drugs, arrests, paranoia. He lived in that house for a while before I rented it out. After he died, my husband put his belongings in that closet because I couldn't look at them." I stared at the deadbolt. "What does Garrett have to do with the postcards?" "Nothing." "You don't know that." "He's dead, Nate." I almost said so was the problem before, but I stopped myself. "When did he die?" 5 years ago." "How?" She didn't answer. "Marlene." "Overdose," she said. I believed her and didn't believe her at the same time. "Send someone with the key," I said. "I told you I don't have it." "Then I'm breaking it open." She started yelling then, but I was already too far into it. I went back to the garage, found a rusty crowbar near the paint cans, and returned to the hallway. It took longer than I expected. The door was solid and the lock was strong. By the time it finally cracked open, my palms were sore and my shirt was stuck to my back with sweat. The closet smelled awful. Not rotten, just old. Like dust, mildew, and something chemical. I pulled the door open. At first it looked like normal storage. Plastic bins, shoe boxes, an old duffel bag, a stack of folded blankets, a framed surfboard poster leaning against the wall. Then I noticed the labels on the bins. They weren't written in Marlene's handwriting. They were printed. Alyssa, Unit B Trevor, Unit BM. Reyes, Unit B. Daniel, Unit B. There were more, at least 8 names. Some were marked with dates. My mouth went dry. I opened the bin labeled Alyssa. Inside were photos. Printed photos. Some looked like they had been taken from a distance. Alyssa walking to her car. Alyssa sitting outside my unit. Alyssa asleep through the window with blue light from a TV on her face. Other things were inside too. A hair tie. A receipt from a coffee shop. A folded veterinary clinic schedule. A small bottle of perfume. I backed away so fast I hit the opposite wall. Then I saw another bin. It had my name on it. Nate, Unit B. The label looked newer than the others. I stood there for several seconds before opening it. Inside were 3 things. A photo of me unlocking my door. A paper napkin from the coffee place near the pier where I went almost every morning. And a spare key. Not a random key. A copy of the key to my unit. I knew because it had the same yellow plastic ring mine did. That's when I heard a sound behind me. Not from the hallway. From inside the house. A soft creak. I turned slowly. The hallway was empty. I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Then my phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Alyssa. Do not go in the main house alone. I stared at it. Then another text came in. I just remembered something. Trevor didn't leave because of the postcards. He left because he saw someone living in the attic. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I read Alyssa's text 3 more times. He saw someone living in the attic. At almost the exact same moment, I heard it again. A faint sound. Not in the hallway this time. Above me. A slow scrape like someone shifting their weight across old wooden beams. Every instinct screamed at me to leave. Instead, I made the mistake that horror stories are built on. I looked up. The ceiling above the hallway had one of those square attic access panels with a small metal ring hanging from it. It was open, only by an inch. Only by... I was absolutely certain it hadn't been open when I walked inside. I slowly backed away from the closet, never taking my eyes off the attic hatch. The scrape came again. Closer. Then something lightly tapped the inside of the panel. 3 taps. My stomach dropped. Someone was above me, not years ago, not yesterday. Right then. I ran. Not toward the front door. Toward the garage. It was closer. My shoes slammed against the hardwood floor as I sprinted down the hallway. I reached the garage door, grabbed the handle, and it wouldn't open. I yanked harder. Nothing. I had closed it automatically behind me when I came in. The power opener was inside the garage. I spun around. The house was silent again. My heartbeat was so loud I could barely hear anything else. Then came another sound, a slow footstep. From the hallway, not running, walking, deliberately, like whoever it was knew I had nowhere to go. I backed deeper into the garage, grabbed the crowbar I'd dropped earlier, and held it with both hands. The hallway remained empty. Another step, closer. I couldn't see the person yet, only the shadow stretching across the hallway floor. Tall. Thin. I pulled my phone out with my left hand and dialed 911. The dispatcher answered almost immediately. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's inside the house. What's the address? I gave it to her while keeping my eyes on the hallway. Are you able to leave? No. Can you lock yourself somewhere? I'm in the garage. Then I saw him. He stepped into view so calmly that, for a split second, my brain refused to process what I was looking at. The same dark hoodie, the same gloves, the same paper mask. Only now he wasn't hiding behind camera glitches. He was standing 20 feet away, watching me. He tilted his head slightly, not aggressively, curiously, like he was trying to recognize someone. Neither of us moved. The dispatcher kept talking. Sir, are you still there? I whispered. He's here. The man slowly lifted one hand. I tightened my grip on the crowbar. Instead of attacking, he pointed, past me, toward the shelves in the garage. Then he turned around, walked back into the hallway, and disappeared. Just like that. No rush, no panic. Just gone. What is he doing? The dispatcher asked. I don't know. Officers are on the way. I stayed frozen for nearly 30 seconds before looking where he'd pointed. There was a workbench against the wall covered with dusty boxes. Behind them sat an old electrical panel. One of the breakers had a handwritten label. Attic light. I stared at it. The attic. He had pointed me toward the attic. Against every ounce of common sense, I flipped the switch. Somewhere above the ceiling, a fluorescent light buzzed to life. Immediately, I heard movement. Fast movement, running, not toward me. Away. Heavy footsteps thundered across the attic from one side of the house to the other. Then a loud crash, then silence. The dispatcher heard it too. What was that? I swallowed. I think somebody just ran. Less than 2 minutes later, I heard sirens outside. I burst through the front door before the officers even knocked. "There!" I shouted. "Attic!" Within seconds, the house was surrounded. 2 officers entered through the front while another circled behind the property. One climbed into the attic. Another searched every room. I waited outside with my hands shaking so badly I couldn't unlock my phone. About 10 minutes passed before an officer came back down. His expression had completely changed. "What did you find?" I asked. He looked toward his partner before answering. "Someone's been living up there." My mouth went dry. They found a sleeping bag, empty food containers, water bottles, flashlights, a police scanner, several prepaid cell phones, and dozens of cardboard boxes. Inside those boxes were photographs, thousands of photographs, not just of me, of every tenant who had lived in the guest house. Some dated back nearly 6 years. Pictures through windows. Pictures taken from the beach. Pictures taken inside grocery stores. Pictures taken while people slept. One detective later told me there were even photographs of Marlene herself. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what they found hidden beneath the insulation. A narrow space between the attic beams led to a vent directly above my studio apartment. The vent had been modified. Someone had removed part of the ductwork and installed black mesh that couldn't easily be seen from below. From that opening, they could look directly into my apartment, directly at my bed, exactly where I'd slept every night. The police never caught the man that day. He escaped through an opening in the attic that led onto the roof of the main house. From there, he jumped into the neighboring yard and disappeared before the perimeter was fully established. Over the next several weeks, investigators pieced together what they could. The fingerprints inside the attic belonged to multiple people. Most were too old or incomplete to identify. The prepaid phones contained almost nothing. No contacts, no messages. Just hundreds of alarm reminders set for different hours of the day. Different schedules, different tenants. Almost like someone had built their entire life around watching strangers. Marlene cried when detectives showed her the attic. She truly hadn't known someone had been living there, but she admitted something she'd hidden from every tenant. Her son Garrett hadn't actually died in that house. He had disappeared years earlier after leaving rehab. The overdose story had been something the family convinced themselves was true because no one wanted to admit they never found him. DNA recovered from one of the coffee cups in the attic eventually came back. It belonged to Garrett. Whether he had been living there the entire time, whether someone else joined him, or whether he'd been gone long before I moved in. The investigators never fully explained. The case is technically still open. I moved out the next morning. I left almost everything behind. Furniture, kitchen supplies, half my clothes. None of it mattered anymore. There was only one thing I insisted on taking. The little doorbell camera. Months later, while cleaning out its cloud storage before canceling the subscription, I found one video I had somehow missed. It was recorded 3 nights before I ever found the closet. The motion light turned on. The masked man walked through the gate, but he wasn't alone. Someone else followed him, an older woman. She stopped just outside the camera's frame. The man looked at her. She handed him something, a postcard. Then they both walked toward my door. The recording froze before either of them reached it. Police never identified the woman. Sometimes I wonder if the video simply corrupted at the wrong moment. Other times, I remember the way Marlene always wore those oversized sunglasses. And I remember how quickly she offered to lower my rent instead of telling me the truth. I still don't know who was stalking me, but I know one thing. Whoever kept leaving those postcards already knew my name before I ever moved in.